I never imagined my wedding would feel like a funeral. The heavy gold lehenga wrapped around my body wasn't just heavy with embroidery. It carried the weight of my father's debt, my mother's tears, and my own shattered dreams. The room smelled of roses, but I could only taste metal on my tongue. Fear has a flavor, and that day it lingered. "Fix your smile, Meera," my mother whispered sharply. "You're about to become Mrs. Dev Singhania. That name alone is worth more than anything we've ever had." I stared at her, too tired to argue. My throat tightened. She wasn't wrong. Dev Singhania was one of the richest men in Asia. Real estate. Tycoon. Owner of 4 airlines. His name opened doors I hadn't even dared to knock on, but he was also 63 years old, a man with graying temples, a cane for his bad leg, and cold eyes that looked through me, not at me. I was 22. How did I get here? Easy. My father took loans he couldn't pay back, got sick, needed treatment. My mother begged for mercy, and Dev offered a deal, a marriage contract that would wipe our debts clean. I was the price. The ceremony was grand, cold, and soulless. Chandeliers sparkled above my head like glass eyes watching the circus unfold. Politicians, celebrities, and industrialists applauded our union as if it were a merger, not a marriage. I looked at Dev, who barely smiled, and told myself to survive. That's all I had to do. But everything changed the moment I saw him. I was sitting alone in the vast marble hallway of the Singhania estate later that night, the echo of my own heels the only company, when a voice broke the silence. Thought. Brides were supposed to be glowing, not haunted. I turned, and there he was. He leaned casually against the doorway, sleeves rolled, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a glass of whiskey. His black hair was messy in a way that looked expensive. His face sharper than any model's, but it was the eyes that hit me. Deep brown, slightly tired, with a mischief buried beneath. "I'm Arjun," he said, walking closer. "Son number 1." I froze. His son, Dev's son, he smirked. "Yeah, the one who didn't show up at the wedding, not a fan of arranged marriages, especially when my father's playing the groom." I couldn't speak. My mouth felt dry and my heart... God, my heart did something I didn't expect. It fluttered. I'm Meera," I whispered. He gave a mock bow. "The new Mrs. Singhania. What a mess." I should have walked away, should have told him not to be disrespectful, but something in the way he looked at me, like I was still human, not a deal. I couldn't move. That night, I didn't sleep. Beside my new husband. He was off in some business wing of the mansion, handling calls. I lay awake in silk sheets, heart beating too loud, mind spinning too fast, with the memory of Arjun's smirk tattooed on the inside of my eyelids. It was wrong. So wrong. But it was just the beginning. The days that followed were a blur of hollow, routines and suffocating silence. Dev wasn't cruel. He was simply absent. He treated me more like a decorative piece than a wife. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was business. Wear this for the gala. Don't speak about family. Matters outside. Smile when we're in public. He never asked if I was okay. No one in that massive mansion did. The staff avoided my eyes. The walls were lined with paintings of ancestors who looked equally miserable. I wandered the corridors like a forgotten ghost, and every corner I turned whispered, "This isn't your home." Except for one place. The garden. It sat behind the main estate, wild and rebellious, like it hadn't agreed to be part of this rich man's world. There was something comforting about its chaos. Untrimmed hedges, vines that climbed wherever they wanted, roses that bloomed without permission, and that's where I found him again, Arjun. He was lying on the grass with a book over his face, headphones in, and shoes kicked off like he owned the earth. I almost turned around, but he spotted me first. Didn't. "Think you'd be the wandering type," he said, pulling off the headphones. "You look more trapped." I looked at him, unsure whether to stay or leave. "I'm sorry about before," I muttered. "At the wedding, I didn't mean to disrespect—" He waved his hand. "Forget it, the whole thing's a joke, my father marrying someone younger than me. It's disgusting. You don't need to pretend it's not." His words were sharp. Brutal, but strangely freeing. I didn't have to pretend with him. I didn't have a choice, I said softly. My father was dying. We owed money. He offered a way out. My voice broke. I just wanted to save my family. He looked at me, really looked this time. The smirk faded. And in return, you sold yourself to the devil. My stomach twisted. You make it sound worse than it is, isn't it? He asked, sitting up. You're married to a man who sees people as property. My father never does anything unless it benefits him. You're not his wife. You're his investment. That hit harder than I expected. Maybe because I'd been telling myself the same thing in whispers, but hearing it out loud hurt more. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you deserve to know who you're dealing with, he said. And maybe because I'm tired of watching good people get crushed by him. His gaze lingered for a moment too long. I felt my breath hitch. I didn't know what was happening between us. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just too broken. People finding comfort in each other's cracks. But from that day on, I kept finding reasons to walk through the garden. And he kept being there. We never touched. We didn't even sit too close, but our conversations grew deeper. He told me about his mother, a kind-hearted woman who died when he was 16, leaving him to be raised by a father who only cared. About empire building. He told me he hated this world of plastic smiles and fake loyalty. He hated the money, the show, the weight of a name he never asked for. I listened, and I told him things I'd never said aloud. About the fear of being owned. About how I missed laughing without thinking. About how I sometimes woke up and forgot I was someone's wife, until the cold side of the bed reminded me. Some nights, I'd look out my window and catch him outside, smoking by the pool, shirt loose, staring at the stars like they held secrets he couldn't tell anyone. One night, he looked up and saw me watching. He smiled and I smiled back. That was the night I realized I didn't feel trapped when I was around him. That was the night I realized my heart had started to betray the name I wore. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to alive. It was dangerous, I knew that. Being around Arjun wasn't safe. Not in this house, not under Dev's name, not under these rules. But every conversation with him peeled off another layer of numbness I'd been wrapped in. And with every glance, every stolen second in the garden or hallway, something deeper pulled us closer. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it wasn't innocent either. The mansion had ears, maids who whispered, guards who noticed. Even the chandeliers seemed to watch. Still, we played with fire like we didn't care who got burned. One evening I was walking back from the library wing when I heard laughter echoing down the corridor. Not the polite kind reserved for business guests. This was real, raw, amused. I turned a corner and saw Arjun leaning against the bar, sipping something dark, chatting with two friends, rich kids, judging by their watches and arrogance. And then, I heard it. Your old man's lost his mind, one of them said. Marrying a girl that young, I thought he adopted her at first. They all laughed. I stood frozen. Not just at the words, but at Arjun's silence. He didn't laugh, but he didn't defend me either. I turned around and walked away before they saw me, my throat burning, shame crawling up my skin like fire ants. I should have known better. This world, they'd always see me as a transaction, a kept woman, a poor girl who got lucky. Back in my room, I stared at myself in the mirror. Who was I now? A wife to a man I didn't love, a stranger in a palace of ice, and maybe a fool for letting her heart stir for someone who hadn't even stood up for her when it mattered. The knock came 20 minutes later. Soft, hesitant. I opened the door to find Arjun standing there, jaw tight, eyes unreadable. I didn't. Laugh, he said before I could speak. I wanted to punch him, but if I'd reacted, it would have made it worse. I crossed my arms. So silence is better? Let them mock me like I'm sorry, Mira, he said, cutting in. I'm really sorry. His voice wasn't defensive. It cracked, just a little, and that broke me. I didn't want to forgive him, but I couldn't hate him either. We stood there inches apart, 1,000 things unsaid filling the air between us. Then, without warning, his hand reached up, slowly, trembling, and brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. I didn't expect you, he said softly. But now you're here and I can't unfeel this. My breath caught. Arjun? We can't, I whispered, even as my skin buzzed where he touched me. This is wrong. I know, he said, but I'm still here, and I hated how much that mattered. The next day, things shifted. Dev returned from a business trip and decided to finally enjoy his new bride. Those were his words. He summoned me to his wing that evening. I obeyed because what else could I do? The room was drenched in cologne and luxury, wine waiting, jazz playing, and Dev, older, more tired up close, but still sharp. He stared at me for a long time before speaking. You're pretty, he said, like a man assessing furniture. But quiet. I don't like silence in a wife. It makes me suspicious. I said nothing. Do you miss your family? He asked next, pouring himself a drink. I nodded slowly. Good. He smiled coldly. Missing keeps you loyal. And then he walked past me, placed his hand on my lower back and whispered, You'll get used to this life. Just don't disappoint me, Mira. That night I cried in the bathroom until my knees hurt, until my ribs felt like they'd cracked, and then I made a decision. If this was going to be my prison, I'd find my own way to breathe, even if it meant betraying everything the marriage stood for, even if it meant falling into the arms of the one man I never should have touched. It happened on a Wednesday. Rain poured over the estate like the sky had finally snapped. The kind of storm that silenced everything, even thoughts. I stood at the edge of the garden, soaked, hands clenched around the iron railing, trying to remember the last time I had felt like me. Dev had left for a weekend conference in Dubai. I should have felt relief, but I just felt emptier. I didn't hear Arjun approach, but I felt him. You'll get sick, he said, pulling off his jacket and gently wrapping it over my shoulders. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. If I did, I'd break. You okay? He asked. I laughed bitterly. You're seriously asking me that? He didn't answer. I turned toward him slowly, rain dripping from my hair, heart pounding like it was trying to warn me. I hate it here, I whispered. I hate this place, this fake life, your father, the silence, the stares, the way I don't even belong to myself anymore. Arjun stepped closer. Then don't be part of it, not tonight. My voice cracked. What does that even mean? It means, he said, and his hand rose to cup my face, you can just be Mira, not Mrs. Singhania, not a symbol or a deal or anything else. Just you. And then it happened. He kissed me, not rushed, not hungry, slow, careful, like he was afraid I'd disappear. My world spun. I should have pushed him away. I should have thought about the consequences, but all I could feel was the heat in his lips, the strength of his arms, the way everything else finally stopped hurting for one goddamn second. I kissed him back. Desperately, I clung to him like he was the only real thing I had left. We stumbled into the garden shed, soaked and breathless. Clothes clung to our skin. His hands were warm on my waist, my fingers tangled in his wet hair. There was nothing gentle about it after that. It was a storm inside the storm, and we let it crash. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't romantic. But it was real. And when it was over, I lay beside him, heart pounding, guilt dripping into the quiet like raindrops. I shouldn't have. I started. Don't, he cut in. Don't ruin it by apologizing. I looked at him. You know this can't last. He nodded, lips pressed tight. But I don't care. Not right now. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But it was only the beginning. The next morning, things were different. We didn't speak about what happened, didn't define it. But the way he brushed past me in the hallway, fingers grazing mine when no one was looking, it said everything. It became our game. Stolen looks across the dining table, quick glances in the mirror as we passed, secret texts when Dev was away. One night Arjun snuck into my room and we fell asleep fully clothed, side by side, just holding each other like the world might collapse if we let go. But the walls had ears. And one night I heard the first crack. I was walking past the servants' quarters when I heard two maids whispering. They say she's seen in the garden too often. With the younger Mr. Singhania, I hope she knows what she's doing if Sir Dev finds out. I didn't wait to hear the rest. The air around me turned cold. We were being watched. I didn't sleep that night, not because of guilt, but fear. Fear of the truth creeping out from under the gold-plated rugs and shattering the fragile world we'd built. Arjun and I had played with fire for too long, and now the smoke was rising. The next morning at breakfast, Dev was already seated at the long mahogany table, sipping his espresso like nothing in the world could touch him. He glanced at me, then returned to his tablet. Cold, calculated, normal, but I could feel it in the air. Something was off. Arjun walked in late, yawning in a black hoodie and joggers, casual, effortlessly arrogant. But when his eyes met mine, there was no smirk, just tension. He felt it too. Dev didn't say a word, just folded his tablet, stood up, and without looking at either of us, said, "Mira, my study. Now." My blood turned to ice. I followed him, down the marble hallway, each step heavier than the last. Inside the study, the door shut with a quiet click that sounded more like a gun being cocked. "Sit." I sat. He didn't. He stood behind his desk, hands folded, watching me like a man who already knew the answer to the question he hadn't asked yet. "Tell me something, Mira," he began, his voice smooth as ever. "Do you know why I married you?" I blinked, thrown off. "To save my family. The money." "No," he cut in. "That was a bonus. I married you because I thought you'd be loyal, grateful, obedient." I swallowed. My throat burned. He stepped closer, but instead, he said quietly, "You've been spreading your legs for my son." The air disappeared from the room. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. He leaned in so close I could smell the cologne on his collar. "Do you take me for a fool?" Tears stung my eyes. "Dev, He slammed his palm on the desk. "You think this empire was built by a man who doesn't know how to control what's his?" I flinched. Then he straightened, smoothing his shirt, calm again. "You're not the first girl to think Arjun is a way out. He ruins everything he touches. I was hoping you wouldn't fall into that category." He walked back around his desk, opened a drawer and threw something onto the table. Photos, black and white, grainy but clear. Me and Arjun in the garden, in the hallway. That one kiss by the shed door, I felt like I was watching myself drown. "I should end you," Dev said quietly. "Send your family back into debt, cut you off and let the media eat you alive." I looked up, breathing hard. "Then why haven't you?" He studied me, expression unreadable. "Because despite everything," he said, "you still have value." He tapped the photos with one finger. "But Arjun doesn't. He's nothing but a stain I've tolerated for too long. And now you've given me the excuse I needed." My heart dropped. "What are you going to do?" Dev smiled, and it chilled me to the bone. I rushed back to my room, hands shaking, heart in my throat. I didn't care about Dev anymore. I only cared about warning Arjun, but he was gone. His room was empty. His things were there, but no sign of him. I called his phone. No answer. I tried texting. Nothing. Then the message came. "Stay away from him, or next time I won't just take pictures." DS. My legs nearly gave out. Dev wasn't bluffing. He was coming for Arjun, and it would be my fault. I didn't leave my room for 2 days. Dev didn't ask where I was. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than a threat. I was being punished, controlled. And the worst part? Arjun still hadn't come back. No messages, no calls, no trace, like he'd vanished. By the third night, I cracked. I snuck into the staff wing and found a maid I trusted, an older woman named Leela, who once pressed my hand in silence when I cried in the early days. "Please," I begged her. "Do you know where Arjun is? Did Dev do something to him?" She hesitated, then she whispered, "I heard them arguing, loud. Dev threatened to cut him off, ruin him. Said he was nothing without the Singhania name. Then the next morning, Arjun left with just a backpack. No driver, no goodbye." My stomach turned. "He's gone?" I choked. She nodded. "But not safe. Not really. I think Dev's having him watched." That night, I sat by my window, fingers trembling around my phone. I sent message after message. "Please answer me. Tell me you're okay. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have dragged you into this. Please. I need to know you're safe." Finally, at 2:13 a.m., my phone lit up. "I'm alive." Just staying low. Don't text me again unless it's urgent. He has people. Arjun and I wanted to cry and scream and throw the phone across the room, but all I could do was clutch it to my chest like it might keep his heartbeat close. The days blurred after that. Dev went back to his usual routine: dinners, calls, events. As if nothing had happened, but something had changed. I was no longer just his wife, I was his prisoner. The smile I used to fake became a weapon. The eyes I lowered in public were shields now, and behind them I was planning. One night, he returned. From a dinner party late, drunk on power and scotch. He stumbled into my room, something he rarely did, and sat on the edge of the bed. "I built everything," he mumbled. "No one gave me anything. Not my father. Not the world. You think..." "So I'm cruel," I said nothing. He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. "Arjun, he's weak, always was. Heart first, brain second. That boy can't survive outside this name. He's nothing without me." I clenched my jaw. "Maybe he doesn't want to survive under you." His face hardened, but he didn't reply. Just stood up and left, slamming the door behind him. That same week I got a note, not a text. A handwritten note, slipped into one of my books in the library. "Meet me at the Red Temple, Thursday, 3 p.m. Come alone." Amy's pulse spiked. The Red Temple was an abandoned place on the outskirts of the estate, a forgotten ruin where children once dared each other to go after dark. Now overgrown and hidden by woods, it was the one place the Singanya eyes didn't reach. I didn't hesitate. Thursday, 3 p.m. I snuck out the back gate with nothing but a scarf and hope. My heart beat louder with every step. And then I saw him, Arjun, standing in the clearing, leaning against the rusted arch of the temple gate. Same dark hoodie, same tired eyes, but different, older, hardened. When he saw me, he didn't smile. He just opened his arms, and I ran into them. He held me like the world was on fire. We stayed there in silence for a long time, just breathing each other in. Then I whispered, "Why did you leave?" "I had to," he said. "He would have ruined me. You. I thought if I disappeared, maybe he'd stop watching you so closely." I looked up. "I can't go back to living in that cage, Arjun." "I know," he said. "That's why I called you." "What are you planning?" His jaw tensed. "I'm going to destroy him." I stared at him, heart pounding. "Destroy him," I echoed, barely breathing. "You mean..." "What exactly?" Arjun looked at me like a man who had been building this moment in his head for years. "I've been collecting things quietly, secrets, proof, the kind of things that don't just hurt reputations, they bury empires." I took a step back, my pulse racing. "Arjun, if you go after him, he won't just sit back, he'll come for you, for us." He smiled bitterly. "He already has." Then he pulled out a small flash drive from his jacket. "This has everything," he said. "Offshore accounts, bribes, shell companies linked to shady land deals, stuff the government would kill for, stuff he thought no one knew." I blinked. "How did you..." "I'm his son," Arjun said. "He taught me how to lie, cheat, and manipulate. He just never thought I'd use those skills against him." I looked at the flash drive like it was a live bomb. Maybe it was. "What do you want me to do with it?" I asked. His eyes met mine, serious but soft. "I need time. I've got a journalist ready to go public, but we need something bigger, something visible. And that's where you come in." I shook my head. "Dev barely lets me breathe. He controls everything I do." "Exactly," Arjun said. "You're close to him. That makes you dangerous." The idea terrified me, but also thrilled me. For so long I'd felt powerless, just a pawn in a twisted game. But now I had the chance to flip the board. The plan was simple. Dev was set to host a grand anniversary gala, his yearly Vanity Fair where politicians, CEOs, and global elite gathered to kiss his ring and talk money over wine. Cameras everywhere, eyes on him, power at its peak. It was the perfect place to make him fall. All I had to do was play my part. The week leading up to the gala was a nightmare. Dev grew more distant but also more paranoid. He had new guards in the house. New staff. I saw him pacing late at night, talking on secure lines, wiping fingerprints off his phones. He knew something was coming, but not from me. The night of the gala, I wore red. A deep, dangerous red. Silk that clung to my curves, like it had secrets of its own. Dev looked at me with something close to pride, maybe possession. "Stay close," he said. "This night is important." I smiled like I meant it. "Of course, darling." The ballroom glittered, flashing lights, crystal chandeliers, powerful men shaking hands with plastic smiles. I played the perfect wife, posing for the press, smiling at strangers, sipping champagne like my life wasn't about to explode in front of them. And then at 9:47 p.m., it happened. Arjun walked into the gala. Clean cut, sharp suit, eyes on fire. People whispered. Some noticed him instantly. After all, the black sheep son rarely showed up to Daddy's golden events. Dev's face turned to stone. "Why is he here?" he muttered beside me. I shrugged. "It's a family affair, isn't it?" Arjun didn't walk toward us. He walked straight to the journalist standing near the side of the hall, a tall man with a camera crew discreetly in tow. I saw the flash drive leave Arjun's hand, and the dominoes began to fall. An hour later, chaos, phones buzzing, whispers turning into shouts, screens flashing headlines faster than anyone could stop them. Singhania Empire under investigation. Exclusive leak, multi-billion-dollar corruption exposed. Billionaire tycoon accused of illegal dealings spanning decades. Dev stared at his phone like it was a knife in his chest. The color drained from his face. He turned toward me slowly. "What did you do?" he whispered. I looked him in the eyes, smiled, and said, "I stopped being your puppet." He lunged toward me, rage unfiltered, but security stepped in. Someone shouted. Cameras turned. His mask slipped. The mighty Dev Singhania was dragged from his own ballroom, yelling threats no one feared anymore. The press devoured it. I stood in the center of the storm, calm. And across the room, Arjun watched me with something that looked a lot like love.